left to right, Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. It is Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. On tap for today, we're going to review my favorite day of the year. It is On tap for today, we are going to review my favorite day of the year. It is trade day. Joining us today, it is Brock. Follow him on Twitter at LandisBrock. What's up, Brock?
What's up, Mr. Crockpot, my guy? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I've been up since 4 a.m. I just made it. We got the Sixers versus Bucks coming up in an hour. Yeah. It's just a beautiful day, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I just got some food in me. We were talking about where I go to eat, so I got a little bit of pizza in me, a little bit of fries, and I think my condiment today was ranch dressing. And if you don't put ranch dressing on your pizza, that's just pathetic. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, it's a major violation, man. You can't do that shit. All right, so let's talk about just the overall day in general, and we're gonna grade each move as we go along. So I don't know what time it was. It was like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I gotta talk to the Sixers, man, because they can't keep dropping these bombs while I'm asleep here, because it's just I gotta sleep, man. But I know it's brutal, right?
For a guy like you that's moving at one speed at all times, you need your rest, and you're taking care of a dog, a lady at your house, and the two of you collectively are taking care of a little lady at your house. So you're always working, man. Yeah. But for me, I'm in college, right? I don't need sleep right now. I wasn't even awake when this trade broke, though. You got Elton Brand out making booty calls to the Golden State Warriors, and I'm waking up to all these notifications. I'm like, who do we get? Is it Derrick Rose? Is it Bertans? It's Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson. But nonetheless, I'm thrilled with the trade, and we're going to talk about that.
Let's talk about it. So the Philadelphia 76ers obtained Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III. They sent they sent Dallas 2020 second rounder, a Denver 2021 second rounder, a Toronto 2022 second rounder. What was your take on the trade, and what would you give a grade for it?
If I had to grade this trade, I would say it was A. I think it was a flawless trade. For Philadelphia, they really gave a low-risk package away to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for something they really lacked, and that was bench production. For Alec Burks, first and foremost, he could score at all three levels. This is a guy that shot over 37% from beyond the arc in 5 of his 9 seasons. He's nearly a decade in the league. He's played in the playoffs twice in that 10-year tenure. And he's a guy, like I said, he can score at all 3 levels, but what's unique about Alec Burks is his commitment to off-ball movement. He's very good at cutting back door. He sees his opportunities. He can handle with poise, and I think when Josh Richardson is not in the game, Ben Simmons can thrive playing alongside a guy like Alec Burks. And Ben Simmons looked well playing with Raul Neto. He looked well playing with Trey Burke. Both of them good point guards. But for Alec Burks, he's a 6'6" combo guard. Offensively, he can seek and hunt mismatches on opposing guards. He does a really nice job with pick and rolls. He can shoot the 3 ball. He gets to the free throw line. He's successful at the line. So Alec Burks is a guy I'm really excited Philadelphia acquired. And I think in the second unit, that's when you'll see him as more of an offensive focal point, getting in the post as a point guard, hitting his mid-range shot. But when he's in the game with Ben Simmons and Joellen Bead, he'll be used more so as a floor spacer, and he's very capable of doing so.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm like right in that A minus. Like, I didn't have big expectations for today. I didn't expect Horford gone. I didn't expect, Tobias Harris to be traded. I did want Derrick Rose, as you can see below. I miss you, Derrick Rose. Just miss you already. All right, but my take with this trade was pick and roll, man. Like, that's the biggest thing that Brett Brown has done over the last month or so is implement Ben Simmons as the roller in the pick and roll. And when I look at Alec Burks, a guy like Alec Burks that can shoot off the dribble, pull up, hit from 3, that's where I went. And we saw Jay Rich kind of take that role. I wonder what that's going to look like, because we saw a lot of Jay Rich and Ben Simmons pick and roll. I think Al Horford should come off the bench, and I could see an Alec Burks, Al Horford pick and roll kind of be sort of a weapon. Like, do I by any means think this is like the move that's going to get them over the hump into the finals? No, not at all. But I see this as a definite upgrade. What about you?
Absolutely. I think with a guy like Alec Burks, his game is so dynamic offensively that he's going to diversify the half-court offense.
Yeah.
And looking at some of his statistics, a couple of numbers that jumped out to me, he has 53 points off of screens this season, which is not only more than Josh Richardson, who Philadelphia has used as a pick-and-roll ball handler, but it's also more than Luka Doncic and Damian Lillard. And Damian Lillard thrives in pick-and-roll scenarios. So Alec Burks is very capable coming off of screens, and he does a nice job hitting his spots coming off of screens. He doesn't over-dribble. He usually hits a spot, and he's able to shoot. With his form, he has a very high and quick release. And at 6'6", playing the 2 position, that's unrivaled. He does a very good job getting that shot off very quickly. But like I said, he has a size advantage over most opposing guards. There's only 10 guards in the NBA that have more post-up points per game. Now, if he's playing alongside Joellen Bead, Ben Simmons, and potentially Al Horford, he's not going to post up and hunt mismatches. That's where he'll be used to space the floor. Like I said, but there, as a catch and shooter, he's shooting nearly 40% in that scenario this season, and that's his 6th season over 38% in catch and shoot scenarios from beyond the arc. So he's very capable of shooting the basketball. He can dribble the ball, like I said. He can be featured in a pick and roll. He cuts, he sets off-ball screens, he frees his teammates. There's so many factors of his game that can help diversify this offense. I think he's going to be great in the second unit, and I've seen people discussing it on Twitter. I think there's a legitimate case that can be made. Now, you still have to see him alongside this core, but there is a legitimate case that can be made for Burks to play with Philadelphia and 4 other people in the crunch time or in the fourth quarter. And I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah, man, I just think of, Ben Simmons' ability to drive and kick. How many times do we see that? Or someone on the Sixers not be able to convert a Ben Simmons pass? If there's like any kind of chemistry built between Ben and Alec Burks, that could be a weapon. And I'm very excited. Let's move on to Glenn Robinson. Glenn Robinson spent 10 games with the Sixers back in 2015. Man, that's my pipeline. I love that time frame. But he's averaging almost 13 points a game, shooting 40.5% from the catch and shoot from 3. What was your take on Glenn Robinson III, man?
Glenn Robinson is a former friend of the process, and he's come full circle this time now in Philadelphia, a completely different ball player than he once was. Of course, due to circumstance, he was propelled to relevance this season with Golden State, but he hit career highs in nearly everything you could mark career highs in, and you just alluded to it, the catch and shoot. Glenn Robinson is fantastic there. Over 3 seasons, shooting over 39% in catch and shoot scenarios. And this is one thing I observed against the Miami Heat. Provided Tobias Harris is dribbling the basketball and he goes down to the low block, you've got Joellen Bead either on the perimeter, mind you, 32% catch and shoot shooter out there, or in the paint. And Ben Simmons probably around the free throw line. Miami is packing the paint with 5 defenders because the only 2 options at the 3-point line that are catch and shooters are Shake Milton and Al Horford. Shake Milton, 35% on catch and shoot, Al Horford, 33. Teams don't have to respect that jump shot. However, Glenn Robinson, athletic enough to play the 2 or the 3 position, is a legitimate catch and shoot 3-point option. Now, having said that, I think he's going to help floor spacing. He can fly on the basketball court, and in transition, he's a guy who, like Alec Burks, can pull up from both beyond the arc and within the perimeter. He moves a lot off ball. He sets screens, and it's a great addition to help bolster this bench.
I couldn't agree with everything more with what you just said. I mean, he's this guy that's going to come in, shoot, and defend. You're going to be able to throw him in different kind of lineup combinations. You look at Burks and you look at Glenn Robinson. These are both 2 guys that the Sixers they're going to fit right in with the Sixers, man, because they can play various positions. All right, next up, we have James Ennis traded to the Orlando Magic for a 2nd-round pick, which actually turned out to be the Lakers' 2020 2nd-round pick. It's likely going to be a pick in the 50s. What was your take on the James Ennis trade?
Unfortunately for James Ennis, and he did waive his no-trade clause, so this was partially his decision. Unfortunately for James Ennis, Philadelphia had to part ways with him, but I understand why they did it. Now, you can argue that Philadelphia could have parted ways with Mike Scott or Howell Neto or Kyle O'Quinn, but then that indicates that the other team that is receiving this player had actual interest in them. And In my opinion, no team is going to trade a second-round pick at this moment, especially a team like Orlando, who is a fringe playoff team. They're not going to trade a second-round pick for any of those players I just named. James Ennis, however, he's 29 years old. He's a veteran presence, and he's consistent. So a team like Orlando is okay with getting rid of a second-round pick in exchange for James Ennis. Now, for Philadelphia, they have stockpiled a lot of wings that contribute in similar ways. You trade for Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson, both two guards that can potentially play the three. Miles Shayok just got recalled, so if he can contribute anything at the NBA level, he'll warrant some NBA minutes. Zaire Smith is another player that Brett Brown has given minutes of late, and I don't think that's due to showcase. So Philadelphia has a lot of wings that contribute in similar ways, and at this moment, James Ennis is really just going to get buried. He's 29 years old. He's going to want another contract. And I think it was the smartest option for Philadelphia to part ways with him. And Orlando, kudos to them for getting Ennis.
This was a really fun trade because it was announced by Shams, who tweeted this out. And then, like, within probably less than 5 minutes, he immediately deleted the tweet. And there was, kind of like a mass chaos on Sixers Twitter for like 30 minutes. Like, who else is in the trade? What's going on? Is it part of a bigger trade? And then the news came out that he had a no trade clause. Who the hell gives James Ennis a no trade clause?
I don't know, but it's funny because I was in a class from 2 to 3:30 today, and in the back of my head, I knew this is the most hectic hour of the NBA trade deadline. This is when everybody just starts trading the trade. So I'm refreshing 210, 215, 210, and there's nothing. And I'm like, is Philadelphia really done? They're not going to make any other trade. Nobody actually wants Zaire Smith. And I'm sitting there and I'm refreshing. And then the Shams thing came up. And all of the people I follow, my whole timeline just got flooded. What do they get and what do they do? And I'm like, what's the trade? And I didn't get to see the Shams tweets. And then I started seeing people were saying that Shams tweeted it and then deleted it. And I'm like, what's the deeper meaning here, right? Or is there more? Do they have a deal in place? But now another team is swooping in there, still 30 minutes. What's going on? Are they getting DJ Augustine? People are talking about Markelle Fultz, Michael Carter-Williams. And all of that led up to Philadelphia trading him for a second-round pick. And I'm like, come on, man. We got 3 minutes left in the deadline. I don't even care at this point. You can have him.
It was kind of funny because my first thought when I saw the trade was, all right, so we added Alec Burks, we added Glenn Robinson, now we're getting rid of James Ennis. My first thought process went to the beginning of the season when I thought for sure that, one of the biggest weaknesses of the Sixers last season was a lack of bench. I thought for sure this year it was going to be, one of the strengths of the team. Man, just James Ennis, I guess he just didn't shoot well enough. You saw him in the Raptors series. And he was like literally a hero in that series. He was excellent, and then he just dropped off the cliff, man. You could name a lot of Sixers players that kind of fell off a cliff, but James Ennis is right at the top of the list, man. What happened with him?
I mean, he was a legitimate sixth man for the Sixers for some time at the beginning of the season, and then in the month of December, I believe, he was shooting sub or around 30% from beyond the arc, and he couldn't really contribute much. And it's a guy that is successful in hitting corner threes. But if you look at how the Sixers offense has changed, the corner three is no longer a mainstay for the Sixers offense. Whereas prior, if you get Joellen Bead set up in the post and that warrants a double team, the corner three is going to be open. And that's where James Ennis thrives. But unfortunately, that's not how the Sixers offense functions anymore. And if there's no spot in the corner for James Ennis and he's playing on the wing like the other 6 wing players on the Sixers bench, there's just really no need to have him on that bench.
So, like, the start of the day, the Sixers got rid of 3 second-round picks, and then they got another second-round pick. So somewhere, Sam Hinkie's laughing. The ghost of Sam Hinkie's laughing in that Sixers front office. What grade would you give the James Ennis trade?
I mean, I'll say it was a C average. It really didn't. It didn't affect me negatively or positively. It didn't really have an impact. That second-round pick is likely going to be dealt away. It's just more draft capital. And like I said, pour one out for the homie James Ennis, but it had to happen.
I fully agree. I'm right around a C. That trade is probably going to equal a pick in the 50s. Maybe the next Mario Shayok comes out in that draft. But like you said, I didn't really have any emotional attachment to James Ennis. He is what he is. I am actually excited to see what Shake can do. That was another take I had was Shake has earned it, man. He has played really well when he's gotten the opportunity. I mean, he's starting now. I don't think he's going to continue to start, obviously. But he's earned it, man. He's playing really well. Do you think Shake Milton will get less minutes, more minutes? Like, what's your take on Shake?
I think Philadelphia is going to continue to giving him minutes. And the organization loves Milton. They love his ball handling. They think he's a very high IQ basketball player. He's playing more under control, and I think he's matured physically. Shake Milton is a guy that's just really coming into his own, and Philadelphia has done a good job nurturing him slowly. And now he's a very confident ball player. He's driving, and namely, I'm speaking about the game in Los Angeles where I think he had 11 points or so. He was taking it to Los Angeles' throat. And for a week when he was starting, he was excelling. He was a good catch and shooter. He was one of the best on the Sixers for that time being. So I think Shake Milton's going to continue to get minutes, and offensively he's a very low usage player that can contribute in different areas other than just shooting the basketball.
I love the way Shake cuts to the basket and is able to finish, man. I love Shake. I covered that guy all year last year. Just a joy to watch. I'm very happy that Shake's possibly going to get more opportunities here with the playoff push. Next that happened was Kyle O'Quinn was released. There was some sort of chaos. Like there was like a 30 to 45 minute period here where Sixers Twitter was guessing who's going to get released, who's going to get cut. Is it Kyle O'Quinn? Is it Raul Neto? Is it Trey Burke? It's definitely Trey Burke. But the first one to go, I think, was Kyle O'Quinn. What was your take on that?
For me, I think offensively, Kyle O'Quinn is fair enough, and Philadelphia has their primary backup center in Al Horford. But I like North Pell, you like North Pell, and most of Philadelphia likes North Pell. He's a better rim protector, and defensively, he's more valuable than O'Quinn. And I think he's associated with Trey Burke. And when we get to Trey Burke, I'll elaborate more. But I think Kyle O'Quinn was part of the distraction. And I have nothing that leads me to believe that. I have no source that's indicated that. This is just pure speculation. But when Trey Burke's dad was chiming in on the Sixers bench situation and speaking about Trey Burke not playing, Kyle O'Quinn was posting cryptic messages all over social media. Now, nobody was able to decode those messages because it was just a combination of letters, and people were trying to figure it out and solve it. But I think Kyle O'Quinn is outspoken, and he was friends with Trey Burke. He was sitting at the end of the bench with him in Brett Brown's doghouse. And I know the Sixers chemistry has been faulty this season more than it ever has been in recent years. And I think this was honestly a business decision, regardless of what Kyle O'Quinn can contribute offensively or defensively. They are trying to get rid of the distraction that he brings along with Trey Burke. And like I said, I'll elaborate a little more.
Man, I was so fucking psyched, man. I was so happy. Obviously, if you go back to the old Party on Bras before the Sixers season started, when they signed Kyle O'Quinn, you could find me raving about Norvel Pell should get those minutes over Kyle O'Quinn. I am biased. I'm going to be frank, but I'm very happy that possibly Norvel Pell could, rejoin the Sixers at some point moving forward. I've never been a Kyle O'Quinn guy. I get that he's like a veteran that could like provide some leadership in the locker room. Sorry, nah, I'm good. This is not like a dog or like some like tough guy that can like bang in the post. No, that's not Kyle O'Quinn. Could they use that? Absolutely. If he was like Anthony Mason, absolutely put that guy in. But that's not what he is. He's a perimeter shooter, stretch four passer. That's not what they need, man. I was happy they moved on. What would you grade the release of Kyle O'Quinn?
I'll give it a B. I think the Trey Burke, waiving Trey Burke was probably more significant. But the reason I give O'Quinn only a B is because I think he could still provide some aid offensively. But at the same time, I'm attaching him to Trey Burke, and I keep alluding to it. So let's get in Trey Burke.
Let's get in Trey Burke. I give it an A, man. I give the Kyle O'Quinn release an A. Get the fuck out. Come on, baby.
Yeah, I've never seen you this passionate.
Give me Norvel Pell, baby. Let's go.
About cooking have I seen you this passionate about something? You must really hate Kyle O'Quinn, man.
Nah, man. I've never been a believer in Kyle O'Quinn. Let's talk about Trey Burke because he was the next one to go. What was your reaction it was kind of like, should they keep Raul Neto or should they keep Trey Burke? I knew that I was always on the Trey Burke side over Raul Neto. I get that Raul Neto can make a three once or twice a game, but from what I want out of that small 5 to 10 minute role, when you look at the Sixers depth, when you look at the Sixers bench, they needed a shot creator. They needed a playmaker, a guy that can, break the zone. That was Trey Burke, and we never saw it happen. And what happened there, man?
Chris, you said it perfectly. When you try to diagnose some of Philadelphia's problems, offensively at least, they lack a shot creator off the dribble. They lack a primary ball handler. They lack a player that can create instant individual offense. Trey Burke was all of that to a degree. Now, he's not the most effective point guard. He's not the most efficient. But given what he did in a short span of time, I think he showed glimpses that he's very capable of playing point guard, not only alongside Ben Simmons, but in the second unit alone. Trey Burke is a guy who offensively is better than Raul Neto in every aspect of the game. I think he was the most productive bench player, and although we're looking at really limited minutes here because he had the sixth fewest on the team, he was fourth on the Sixers in field goal percentage with a minimum of 5 attempts per game. He had the highest three-point percentage. He had the highest offensive rating, the highest net rating, the second highest assist percentage, the second lowest turnover percentage on the team. His true shooting percentage was higher than Jay Richardson, Matisse Thybulle, and Al Horford's. But given everything else, he's a journeyman point guard. He's been on 4 teams since 2016. He's never been on a contending team in those previous couple of years. And I think Philadelphia let Trey Burke go because of the distraction. And I don't necessarily think Trey Burke was a distraction in the locker room, but I think the problem is people like me, people like you, we have dialogue on social media about Trey Burke. If we're having this dialogue, analysts are having this dialogue, people on NBA TV, ESPN, they're having this dialogue. So instead of focusing on the Philadelphia 76ers, now people also think, well, you've got this guy that's better than the point guard they're using right now in Raul Neto, mind you, whose offensive rating was third lowest on the team. Only Pell and Bolden had a lower offensive rating than him.
Pell and Bolden?
Yep. So Philadelphia is utilizing this point guard right now when look at who their 9th or 10th man is, and it's Trey Burke. So then people start to look towards Brett Brown, and then people start to examine their bench a little closer, and then people start to look at their team a little closer, and stuff like that bleeds into the locker room. The players hear this noise too. For as many internal problems as the Sixers have, they fall victim to external problems too. So I think Philadelphia made a business decision here, similar to Kyle O'Quinn, in that we are getting rid of any distraction. Now, one thing I will say about Raul Neto is that he's consistent. He's been doing the same thing his entire career. So you can live with what Raul Neto does, because if he's your 9th, 10th, 11th man and he's not playing in games, nobody cares. But if it's Trey Burke in that role, people do care, and it becomes a distraction. And Chris, you know just as well as I do, in Philadelphia, they have just as many distractions as they do wins. So you part ways with Trey Burke, unfortunately, even though I believe he was your most productive bench player at the time. And Kyle O'Quinn was his friend. Kyle O'Quinn hung out with him at the end of the bench. And I think those cryptic messages may have something to do with Trey Burke's playing time at the time. Just speculation, but I think that's why you get rid of them. A guy like Mike Scott, you can't justify to fans why you spent the MLE on a player who now you're going to waive. So you keep Mike Scott, and I think Jonah Bolden, the organization still thinks he has some upside, and I also think he's Ben Simmons' friend. And you appease Ben Simmons by keeping him on that roster. I could be wrong, that's pure speculation, but Chris, that's how I felt. And if I had to give it a grade, in a vacuum, it's an F. But given context, I think that's also a B.
I'm an F. Where I give Kyle O'Quinn an A. This is an F, man. Whether it's Brett Brown's fault, we're probably going to get into that in a little bit there. But man, he deserved to play a lot more than what he did, man. 13 minutes per game in 25 games. For a guy like that, that's just criminal. So in the end, Zaire Smith, Raul Neto, and Mike Scott survived the purge. I was a little nervous about Mike Scott. I'm not part of the beehive for Mike Scott. I'm not that. I think you are. Were you nervous that Mike Scott was gonna get showed the door?
In the back of my mind, I thought he was definitely going to get traded, but like I said, you can't spend the MLE on a player and then waive him and justify that to your fan base. So yeah, of course, Mike Scott could have been vulnerable to trade, but I don't think the organization was going to waive him. And now you can only hope he could somehow remember to get back into a groove or develop that jump shot yet again, because I mean, he was really cashing out last year. He played himself into a more lucrative contract, but it's just been tough to watch him. He's been almost unplayable this season.
All right, so how would you grade the Sixers trade deadline day? I'm right around like a B-. I didn't really have the expectations. I wanted Derrick Rose. Would have, Davis Bertans be fun? Absolutely. It didn't happen, but my gut told me that it kind of went as expected. We got some role players. I think the bench is absolutely upgraded. I'm right around a B-. What about you?
I'm gonna give it an A.
Wow.
I'm gonna give this grade I'm gonna give this the same grade as I gave just the Warriors trade alone, and I say that because given how limited Philadelphia was with their assets, you talk about draft capital and the packages they could have strung together for potential players. I think they did a nice job to bolster their bench, and they add a couple of very good pieces for a very low package, low risk, high reward trade. And Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson are here for virtually no cost, and they can really help this bench out. I'm super excited. I can't describe to you how excited I am to have a guy like Alec Burks. I think he's multi-dimensional. I think he's going to help this offense a lot.
Awesome. So let's move on to what comes next. Per Shams, Josh Richardson held a players-only meeting on Wednesday today to rally the troops. Can we officially call him James Richardson?
He's the adult in the room. That's James Richardson.
Yes. That's pretty cool, right? That's been the issue, right? Like, there's no alpha dog on this team. There's no one that's going to fourth quarter Jimmy Butler the hell out of the fourth quarter. That's been killing me on the inside for the last month. So the fact that Josh Richardson is the guy that comes in and steps up, and maybe he's the guy, what was your take on that?
I think Josh Richardson had to do this by default. In December, I believe it was, he was quoted as saying there was little to no accountability in the Sixers locker room. This is a team when, if you watch Philadelphia and they're not playing at Wells Fargo and oftentimes even on their home court, they play with little to no emotion.
No.
Ben Simmons is stoic. He shows no emotion. He never gets happy. He never gets upset. He's stoic throughout. Tobias Harris is usually stone-faced. Joellen Bead was once fun and was once trolling people, but ever since that Karl Anthony Towns feud, it seems like somebody gave him a warning or almost told him to stop. In his Athletic article, he claims that it's because he's just focused on winning, which that's fine, but Joellen Bead, I don't believe is mature enough to be a leader either. And I thought Al Horford was going to be that guy. That was the narrative that was associated with him in Boston. But not even Al Horford is really taking accountability or being this claim leader for the Sixers team. So it doesn't put emotion. At the time of duress, I think Josh Richardson needed to step up, and he did. And Philadelphia hasn't gotten too many glimpses of Josh Richardson due to injury. But when he has played, he's thrived here in Philadelphia. He's a very good basketball player. And if he can become the leader for Philadelphia, I think that'd be awesome. People talk a lot about the culture of Miami. It's not for everybody, people say, but I think Josh Richardson is truly a product of the Miami Heat, and they do create leaders. So maybe Richardson is stepping into that role for Philadelphia.
Awesome sauce. All right, let's talk about the lineup, the Sixers lineup moving forward. What is your ideal Sixers starting lineup? I'll start off. I've got Ben at the 1, Jay Rich at the 2, Matisse at the 3, Toby at the 4, I have Embiid at the 5, and I have Alec Burks and Al Horford getting legit minutes off the bench. I'll go Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, and my man, Norvel Pelle. What about you, man?
You like Pelle a lot, man. I like him too. I think Matisse Thybulle needs to be starting. but offensively, he's been really struggling of late. Having said that, I don't think Al Horford should even sniff the starting five unless a matchup completely warrants it. For example, tonight, Philadelphia plays Milwaukee. Al Horford can start because defense should be valued more than offense in a game against Milwaukee. I think Ben Simmons needs to be your point guard. Of course, Josh Richardson needs to be your two. Matisse Thybulle could play the three if he becomes more serviceable offensively. Tobias Harris at his natural position at the four, and the five, Joellen Bead. Now, granted, if Matisse Thybulle can't do too much offensively, I think Alec Burks could even start for the Philadelphia 76ers. But for the time being, that would be my ideal starting five. Al Horford as your sixth man. Alec Burks would be your seventh.
Okay.
And then after that, I think some of the numbers are interchangeable. Glenn Robinson, I think he could do more than Furkan Korkmaz. I think his game is multifaceted, whereas Furkan Korkmaz has incorporated that floater as well as the moving three-point shot. But I think Glenn Robinson does more moving off ball, setting more screens in transition. He's probably a little more valuable. So I think the 8 and 9 are interchangeable between Glenn Robinson and Furkan Korkmaz. Shake could absorb some of those backup point guard minutes, which he definitely will. But even oftentimes, I think Shea could share the floor with Ben Simmons and run some point guard along Ben Simmons, although we'll probably see Alec Burks feature more in that. And then finally, I'm going to go with you. I think Pell could definitely see some minutes as a third unit center, but there's no way in the world he should share the floor with either Joellen Bead or Al Horford at any time during a basketball game.
No, man. Pell is like the last resort. Pell brings, in my head, there are three elite skills in the NBA. One of them is shooting. The second one is being able to defend multiple positions. And the third is rim protection. Those are my three. And that's what Pell brings. And that every time that Joellen Bead steps off that floor, it is just brutal to watch defensively. I know he's, a head case, and I know he gets into foul trouble. He makes bonehead mistakes, but they need that guy, and he's going to be an energy guy. He's a guy that can probably provide a spark from time to time, especially in the playoffs when you get a half-court game going. For me, it's Norvel Pell. Let's move on to our final thoughts. Go ahead, man.
I'm talking about Brett Brown, all right? And Brett Brown, listen, I know you don't watch Party on Broad. I get that. But if you ever were to watch Party on Broad, please, please, please take this advice, okay? Now, there's clearly a problem in Philadelphia, and a lot of them I can't diagnose. But you made a public plea for Ben Simmons to start shooting the basketball. Not that I mind. Since you made that public plea, Ben Simmons has not taken one three-point attempt. Josh Richardson already questioned the accountability. Now, the Philadelphia Inquirer article a couple of days ago was alluding to the fact that the buddy-buddy relationship between players in the organization is creating problems, which then, by default, stem all the way down to Brett Brown. And now he is no longer a coach or a boss. He's more of a friend. But listen, you're 9-17 on the road, and it's February. You are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. You're underachieving. There's a lot going wrong here. Now, if I'm the head coach of Philadelphia, here's what I would do. Al Horford is moving to the bench. I don't care about his ego. He's making $25 million a season. He can sit on the bench and afford that. So he should be your sixth man coming off the bench. Next, in the half-court offense, Ben Simmons is fine in transition. In the half-court offense, which I will give Brown credit, he's been doing more often, Ben Simmons needs to play off-ball a little more often. You can run pick and roll with him. You can keep him in the dunker spot, whatever. He needs to play along a primary ball handler. Now it's probably going to be Alec Burks and Josh Richardson. If either one of them play that role, it's completely fine. Finally, use more of your shot clock. I mean, Philadelphia, I posted this the other day. Philadelphia is one of only two teams, and Houston's the other team, for 5 consecutive seasons to place top 10 in the most three-pointers attempted from 22 seconds to 18 seconds in the shot clock.
Wow.
Philadelphia, for 5 consecutive seasons, has been one of the best teams at shooting early in the shot clock. That's a problem for me. I think Philadelphia needs to slow down their offense, take or use more of that shot clock, so Joellen Bead can set himself up in the post. And that way, if he sets himself up, even at the high or low post, it could open things up like backdoor cuts or corner threes. Instead, Philadelphia runs down the court. Their center barely makes it past half court, and somebody else is heaving a three. And if they're not, then throw it behind you, and Joellen Bead is heaving a three. And I think that's counterproductive. So those are three things I think I'd start with if I was Brett Brown.
I couldn't agree more, man. Speaking as a Brett Brown guy, I love the guy. He bought me a beer one time. I was a Brett Brown guy, and over the last 2 months, man, standing on my Brett Brown hill, man, has been really difficult because A, I'm by myself, and B, I see the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. All these trades we just talked about today, all these cuts mean absolutely jack shit. The season's going to be boiled down to, can the Sixers find an identity, and can Brett Brown integrate Al Horford and Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson into the offense and defensive systems? He's getting Ben Simmons into the pick and roll. I really am enjoying that. But man, what's your thoughts on Joellen Bead? Because this guy has been lifeless. He's still reserved to the perimeter. There has been a lot of talk today about, I think it was Chris Broussard brought up that these two are jealous of each other. And I don't know. On one end, I can see why. For Brett Brown calling out Ben Simmons, I can see why Joellen Bead would be pissed. We talk about accountability. I look at Ben Simmons. But then again, Joellen Bead isn't without fault, man. This guy should be dominant. This guy should be absolutely dominating the paint, and he looks like he could give a damn. The Sixers have been in cruise control, it seems like, over the last week or two. What's your take on Joel Embiid? I mean, he is the guy that's going to take him to the next step, and he's not. I don't know what to say.
It's really maddening, and I think it has a little bit to do with the fact that the organization let both Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick walk, and I think Joel Embiid was very good friends with the two of them. I think there's some nepotism going on, and I think players are cognizant of this. I think Brett Brown probably favorites Ben Simmons a little more than he does other players, and there is a relationship between both him and the Simmons family. The thing with Embiid is that he talked about sacrificing for his teammates, and there's been a lot of people that work for both the Painted Lines and on Twitter that have investigated this. I mean, he's shooting less three-point shots this season than he did last year, and he's posting up a career-high amount this year. So something's not adding up. I'm not sure what it is. I think him and Simmons are fine, and as far as I'm concerned, I think they can coexist, and they've done very well for the past couple of seasons. But another thing, somebody for the Painted Lines pointed this out, I'm drawing a blank, but Joel Embiid has as low of an offensive rating in a two-man lineup with Al Horford as he does with Gerald Henderson. Gerald Henderson is the only other player he has a lower offensive rating with in his entire career. So Marco Bellinelli, Ersan Ilyasova, Jared Bayless, he has a higher combined offensive rating with all of those players than Al Horford. Something's not adding up. I don't know if it's the spacing. I don't know if it's Brett Brown. I don't know if it's Ben Simmons. I don't know what it is, but it's maddening. I will say, though, the Philadelphia Inquirer article did a very nice job. It was a great read. And to summarize, they said, well, listen, there's no repercussions, right? If Brett Brown tells Ben Simmons, you need to shoot a three-point shot every single game, and he doesn't, but he ends up in a box suite with Kevin Hart and Michael Rubin at the Super Bowl the night before the team plays in Miami, he doesn't need to shoot. There's no incentive. It's the same way where if the team or Brett Brown tells him, you need to get your ass in shape or get your ass in the post and play back to the basket, at the end of the day, if he's going to be hanging out with Meek Mill, Robert Kraft, and going on trips with Michael Rubin, there's no repercussions. So there's no incentive to get in shape. I'm not sure what these problems are that are internal. And I know there's external stuff bleeding into the locker room right now, but I really hope they can figure it out. And I hope people don't fall victim to myopia or nearsightedness and split Simmons and Embiid up. I'd at least want to see if they could work under another coach or two. And then if they can't coexist, you explore the option of splitting them up if it's worth it. But I just really hope people are thinking with a clear head and don't fall victim to nearsightedness here.
Can we just all collectively take a deep breath? The fact that the trade deadline is over and we don't have to see any more Ben Simmons or Joellen Bead trade scenarios on Sixers Twitter for the next at least a few months. If we're a first round exit, the Sixers lose to Miami in the first round, then everything is 100% fair game. However, like you said, man, Brett Brown's the one on the clock. He's the one that goes first. There is no way I trade Ben or Joel before bringing in a new coach with a new system that might have some new, fresh ideas. My final thought before we wrap this up is I want to give major props to the Minnesota Timberwolves for getting out of that horrendous Andrew Wiggins contract, and they only gave up a 2021 first-round pick. I just got to give kudos, man. That was a Sam Hinkie level trade to be able to get D-Russ and then also get rid of that Andrew Wiggins trade. Bar none, the worst contract in the NBA. Andrew Wiggins will go down. He's like the definition of guy that flashes star potential, but he's not. So, man, just a really frustrating player. And it's really fun to think back to the process and how, all the tanking for Wiggins and, where we are now. You look at Jabari Parker just got traded again. And it's just crazy to think about. We complain and complain and complain about Joellen Bead, but, man, look at Andrew Wiggins. Look at Jabari Parker. Just crazy, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Make sure you follow Brock on Twitter at LandisBrock. I am Dibes, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Check out all of our Sixers content, trade deadline, write-ups at thepainted.com. For Brock, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!